This video is going to tackle the specific questions you have as a senior golfer. If you're looking to increase your distance and get back some of those lost yards, then this video will give you some practical tips on how you can do just that, some of which you can incorporate into your game immediately. Some of the other stuff may take a little bit longer, but I'm going to cover three main areas that you can look at if you're a senior golfer looking to add that distance back into your game. So the three areas we're going to look at would be: one, increasing the body turn, which two, should help to increase the hand path length, and I'll get to that shortly. And then finally, we're going to look at how you can close the club face sufficiently to maximize the ball speed. That's going to involve a discussion around the wrists, and we'll get to that later. But let's start with increasing the turn. If we move to this front camera view, I'd like to just start from the ground up. The most simple, effective thing that you can be doing, any golfer's age to be honest with you, but if you're a senior golfer particularly, is turning your feet out at setup. That external rotation of the hip effectively allows for greater range of motion. If you think about it, when you get older, you start to lose some motion, lose some flexibility in certain joints. So we need to be making sure we're utilizing the body as it was designed to maximize the range of motion through these joints. So the very first thing you're going to do is to turn your feet out, both of them. The second thing you're going to do to help increase the turn would be to drop your trail foot back slightly, closing off your stance effectively. That does a couple of things. It presets the hip turn a little bit more closed to begin with, and that again allows for a greater potential range of motion through the backswing. And then the final thing we're going to do to increase our turn is to ensure that we allow our knees to change flex as we swing. Changing the knee flex immediately impacts the hip turn. It allows for greater rotation through the hips, the pelvis, and that allows for greater shoulder turn. The shoulder turn is only possible, a full shoulder turn is only possible if we're utilizing the lower body correctly. So turn the feet out, allow the knees to change flex, which will allow the hips to turn, and then that will give us this increased hand path length. Hand path really just describes the path that the hands take throughout the swing. And said simply, the shorter the hand path, the less potential power. Think about a putt. If I was putting, I'd move my hands in a very short range. If I wanted to hit the ball further, one of the most straightforward things I could think about would be to increase the distance the hands travel around me. A longer hand path in the backswing gives me more potential power in the downswing because it gives me longer to pull on this club before I hit the ball. So if we want a longer hand path, we need to increase the turn. If we want to increase the turn, we've got to start from the ground up. Turn your feet out, change your knee flex, let your hips turn. That's going to help maximize the potential power in your swing. So having made those setup and backswing modifications that should help you to regain some of that distance that you've lost, the final thing to really talk about here is to try and help you maximize your ball speed. And this is a good tip whether you're a senior golfer or not. Maximizing your ball speed means getting the club face sufficiently closed so that you're getting the maximum amount of speed off the club face for the club's head speed that you're producing. I think a lot of people worry that when they lose a little bit of club head speed, they're automatically going to lose distance. That doesn't always have to happen if you're getting the wrist angles correct. Let me elaborate on that. And to do this, I'm going to incorporate the Hack Motion wrist sensor to show you something that I think you'll find very interesting. As we come to the front view camera, let me just explain what I'm going to show you here with regards to this lead wrist. If you look at the club face and you look at my left hand grip, if I was to increase the amount of extension in this wrist, so add more of an angle here in the back of the wrist, you'll notice how that immediately opens the club face. This is a problem that so many golfers who struggle to hit the ball far enough, they experience this issue with too much extension in their lead wrist. That can happen throughout the swing, but particularly at impact, if the club face is too open, you're likely going to hit high shots to the right as a right-handed golfer, weak shots like a slice or a fade. This particular wrist condition is associated with an open club face. That's the extension you see here. The opposite of extension would be to twist the wrist in the opposite direction. This is moving it towards flexion, and flexion would have the opposite effect on the club face. You'll see now this club face is a little bit closed. Now, just like anything, you can have too much extension or too much flexion. But if the wrist is moving more towards flexion and this club face is tending to stay a little bit more closed, you'll tend to get that ball speed to increase. That ball will come off of the face quicker, even with the same club head speed. And that's exactly the demonstration I want to make for you now. Using the Hack Motion wrist sensor, I'm going to hit 2 shots where I try to keep the club head speed as close as possible to being the same, but we'll see the difference in the ball flight based on the wrist angles and what that's done to the club face. So if I go ahead and hit one where I extend my lead wrist too much in the backswing, which would open this club face, okay, I'm starting to see the club face open, I'm going to have too much extension at the top, and even though I'm going to swing down fairly hard and try and keep my swing speed consistent, we're going to hopefully, I would expect, to see a very different outcome in terms of distance that these drives go. So let's do the first one. I'm still going to incorporate the correct setup here. I'm going to turn my feet out, pull my right foot back, make sure I make a big turn, but I'm going to open the club face on this one. I'm going to extend this lead wrist too much. Quick question for you. Did you know that 80% of your golf ball's direction comes from the club face angle at impact, and it's your wrists that control that angle? If you want to hit straighter shots and add more distance to your game, then check out the link in the description below. Okay, I struck that pretty well. The contact was good. You'll see from the Hack Motion, I certainly had too much extension at the top. One of the things that I always find when I'm using this device is because I've hit a lot of balls, I will tend to try and recover those wrist angles in the downswing, and it suggests I got pretty close to doing that. But because I had so much extension at the top, look at the flight of that ball. Very, very high, very open club face, ball's curved off to the right. I managed 95 miles per hour of club speed, and I achieved 134.8, so 135 miles per hour of ball speed, which gave me a carry distance of 195 and a total distance of 200 yards. That's extremely short for me and extremely inefficient. Let me see if I can deliver better distance results with the same club head speed just by managing my wrist angles differently. So I've teed up another ball and I'm going to do the same setup. Here I'm going to try and incorporate the same speed more or less, but this time using wrist angles that would be more familiar to me, keeping the face a little bit more closed to the path, keeping that lead wrist effectively flatter or in more flexion. Let me go ahead and hit one and see what we get. It felt pretty solid off the club face, maybe a little bit low on the club face, but we'll see immediately how that ball flight is not a fade or a slice, it's a draw. The club speed was greater, so I did get a little faster on that one, 101 miles per hour. Managed 150 miles per hour of ball speed, 220 yards of carry, 275 yards total. That's a 75-yard increase. Now, granted, that second swing was a little bit faster than the first swing. I wasn't able to exactly match the same swing speeds, but the difference of 75 yards in there is not just because of those 5 miles an hour of extra club head speed, I promise you. It's because I managed these wrist angles at the top, in the downswing and at impact. And if you look at the Hack Motion, you're going to see there that my wrists were very much in range. Learning to close the club face sufficiently throughout the swing is a key element demonstrated by golfers of all abilities and all ages if they're improving and maximizing their ball speed. Hopefully there's something practical that you can take from this video immediately to the driving range. You can certainly incorporate those setup suggestions and the backswing changes immediately next time you go and practice. If you have a Hack Motion, you can look at the data and have a look and make sure you're gaining enough lead wrist flexion throughout your swing. And if you don't have access to a Hack Motion, you can just start by working on closing or twisting the club face more down, working on the sensation that this lead wrist stays as flat as possible throughout the swing. If you'd like to learn more about how to train your wrists, there's other videos that you can click in the description of this video that will take you to further videos to enhance your understanding of how the wrist should work throughout the golf swing.